Hey everyone, welcome to Gargoyle Graphics. This is going to be our spoiler-filled review of Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which just released this Friday, February 18th of 2022. So if you haven't seen this yet, or you have any inclination to do so, I would advise tuning out now and coming back later and see if you agree or disagree with my take. So again, this movie starts out as a direct sequel to the 1974 Tobe Hooper Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Right off the bat, I don't think the film did itself any favors with the four main protagonists. There's so much social messaging within the first 15 to 20 minutes that these characters are just almost unbearable. Right off the bat, they're driving an electric, self-driving car, and they end up pulling into this gas station. The character Melody, played by Sarah Yarkin, starts making these snarky remarks to this guy that pulled up in a pickup truck who's also has a firearm on his belt, saying things like, "Gee, what's he overcompensating for?" And it's supposed to be this snarky left-wing hot take, but all it came off as is good old-fashioned penis envy, if you ask me. But then they get to the town, which again is this ghost town, but the other main character, Jacob Latmore, playing the character of Dante, makes a snarky remark of his own saying, "Yep, we're looking at the ass end of capitalism." So I don't know if that's the ignorance and or hypocrisy of the character showing or of the writer. And if I had my guess, I'm putting my money on the writer, because the whole point of it is that they bought up all these properties and they're going to try to turn around and flip them to investors. That, folks, is capitalism. And then shortly after that, one of the other main protagonists, Lila, played by Elsie Fisher, gives that same gun-toting stranger a lecture about the size of his carbon footprint he's leaving because he's driving a diesel truck, as well as the safety of firearms, because she's the victim of a mass shooting, don't you know? And all this happens within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, and it just comes off heavy-handed and really doesn't do anything to serve the story other than make you immediately dislike the four main characters and begin the countdown clock on when you get to see them brutally murdered. I guess the point is that if you're going to try to be slick about putting in your self-righteous virtue signaling message, try being slicker than an 8-year-old, because all it did was really make you dislike those four main characters. So as the movie progresses, the four main characters enter this home that apparently still has an occupant in it, which is this little old lady in a wheelchair and an oxygen tank and the whole 9 yards. And this lady maintains that she still owns the property and has the deed for it, whereas Jacob Latmore's character maintains that he has bought all the properties in the town, so it's impossible that she has the deed. They end up calling the cops and get her evicted, as well as her large hulking son, and they load the two of them up into a paddy wagon and they're taking them off, and the old lady dies, which sets off the big hulking son, who ends up being Leatherface, obviously, and shenanigans ensue. Meanwhile, the group of investors have arrived in town in this big charter luxury bus, and they're scoping out the town, upon which Leatherface returns and the killing begins. And that's what this movie really has going for it, is the absolute brutality, the gore and practical effects they use. This is one violent film. They don't pull any stops on that regard. And at that point, the group of investors and the main characters retreat onto that charter bus, where they have another bit of social messaging where they kind of make a statement about social media and whatnot, because Leatherface enters this bus, trapping everyone inside basically, and immediately everyone pulls out a cell phone and starts broadcasting it across Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. And Leatherface wastes no time in giving these hipster douchebags a grisly end. Anyways, this mystery character ends up showing up at this point, played by Olwen Fourie, who is playing the character of Sally Hardesty, who is the sole surviving victim of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and she's coming back to face Leatherface one last time. And it's a bit anticlimactic, and she kind of gets dispatched pretty quickly. And then it pretty much comes down to, at the end of the movie, the last two of the four main characters, who are sisters, played by Elsie Fisher and Sarah Yarkin, and they're about to make their escape in their self-driving electric car, which they put on autopilot. And as they start to do their slow roll out of town, Leatherface yanks out Sarah Yarkin, and Elsie Fisher watches helplessly as she drives away as Sarah Yarkin gets brutally decapitated. And that's the final shot, is that electric car self-driving itself out of town with Elsie Fisher screaming like a banshee. So my review of the movie is the first 15 to 20 minutes is just almost unbearable. But as the movie picks up and Leatherface comes into the picture, the violence and gore, and again, the practical effects are some of the best I've seen in a long time. Overall, I'll give it a very generous 3 out of 5 stars. It's streaming on Netflix right now, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Check it out.